Hi everyone, welcome to everyone joining this first conference. Today we will see the introduction of this free self-knowledge course. This course consists of 50 topics in its Phase A, and 25 topics in Phase B, in which a lot of information will be delivered, but above all practical techniques, so that we can reach direct verification of each topic that we see, and so that we can know ourselves and awaken our conscience. All the questions you have in relation to this and all the topics, you can leave them in the comment box, and we will be answering them there. So, let's start this introductory topic, in which we will talk about what it is to know oneself, and what are the objectives of achieving self-knowledge. We believe that we know ourselves, because we know our name, nationality, gender, age, profession or hobbies, personality, and behaviors. But it happens that this little information we have about ourselves is not all we really are. In reality, to know oneself is to have achieved identity with one's own divine being, to know oneself identical to one's own spirit, to know one's own inner world. This is what we can and should define as self-knowledge. And the fundamental thing in life is to really know oneself. To know where we come from, where we are going, what is the purpose of our existence, what do we live for? Certainly, knowing oneself is the fundamental thing. Everyone thinks they know themselves when they really don't know themselves. So, it is necessary to reach the full knowledge of oneself, and this requires an incessant self-observation. We need to see ourselves as we are. Unfortunately, people easily admit that they have a physical body, because they can see it and touch it. But, since they cannot see their own psyche, and since they cannot touch or feel it, for them it is something vague, that they do not understand. But when a person begins to observe himself, then he is on the way to wanting to know himself. Because he will begin to realize the need to make an inner change, if he really wants to expand his consciousness, and achieve self-knowledge. Getting to know your own inner world will give you access to the knowledge of the inner world of planet Earth, the solar system, the galaxy, and the entire universe. Because, as the Greek sages said, know thyself and you shall know the universe and the gods. That is because each one of us has his own divine wisdom, which is that of his real inner being. Now, we know that God is everywhere. But do we know our own part of divinity? We never take time to know our inner world. However, it is necessary that we begin to understand the importance of knowing ourselves and begin to find time and space to consciously do this work. Although we might believe that we are only this physical body, because it is the only part of us that we can experience with our 5 physical senses, in reality, we are made up of 3 parts. The first part is matter. That is our physical body or human machine. We do have it, but it's not all we are. The second part is energy. And this is our soul or mind. It comprises 97% of our essence, which is currently trapped within all our different ways of being, our flaws, defects, or psychological aggregates, which make up our ego. It is the psychic energy, which originates all our movements, and which we do not know, even though we live much longer in our inner world than in the outer world, since our emotions, thoughts and desires are processed there. This is what we can call our multiple psyche. The third part is light. And this is our spirit or consciousness. It is the 3% of free and conscious essence that resides in all of us. It is our divine wisdom. The real, the true, the eternal or immortal, the knowledge of each one of us, what is not of time, and never passes. Our spirit is an inexhaustible source of wisdom, love, and justice. And by awakening this part within us, we will find that within us resides the guide that will take us through this process to achieve self-knowledge, and to release that 97% of essence trapped within our ego, and merge it with that 3% to make us more and more conscious, until we reach 100% free and awakened consciousness. That's what this knowledge is about. To slowly penetrate into that mysterious and wonderful world called oneself. And for this, to achieve true inner knowledge, we must study the four pillars of wisdom, which are science, psychology, art, and mysticism, which are the ones on which all the lessons we will receive throughout this course are based. Let's look at the science pillar. Experimentation is the basis of conscious science. And conscious science teaches us the different procedures to be able to know our inner world and experience it directly. We must note that the word knowledge comes from knowing, not from believing. Since only through practice, we can experience directly in the different dimensions of nature and reach true knowledge. In this course, we will teach different practices that will allow us not only to experience real changes within ourselves, but also to delve into our inner world and directly experience the reality of the different dimensions of nature. We know that practice makes perfect, and only through practice can we see results in our inner work. That's why we must practice until we succeed. Among the practices we find practices to develop the natural state of consciousness, which is relaxation, and practices to develop that great power that will allow us to succeed in everything we undertake, which is concentration. Explanation and practices to achieve conscious astral projection or astral unfolding. Transcendental meditation practices, such as meditation with koans, to access the sixth and seventh dimensions, and reflective meditation, to make big changes in our psychology as we study ourselves through meditation. Also, practices for karma negotiation, which will allow us to stop paying for our karmic debts with pain and start paying for them with conscious works of love. That, among many other important practices. The second pillar, on which self-knowledge is based, is art. Art teaches us to create. And the main creation that we can do is that of oneself, creating ourselves. And we must know that it is in the sexual center, where the great possibilities of the human being are latent. In reality, the good use we make of this center regenerates us. Therefore it is important to consider changing the way in which we currently practice sex, so that we begin to practice a superior sexuality that will allow us to regenerate us and create in ourselves the superior existential bodies of the being. This means that through the wise use of our creative sexual energy, we will be able to regenerate our physical and vital bodies, which we already have fully created, but degenerated or in a lunar state. And then, to create a solar astral body, and a solar mental body, of which we currently have only an embryo of these bodies, which allow us to feel and think and make brief conscious projections to the fifth dimension. If we get to fully create those bodies, we will have conscious and permanent access to the astral and the mental worlds. And finally, to create the causal body, or body of the solar will, to become true men, and to be able to unite the Buddhic and Atmic bodies, which are already fully developed and in a solar state. But to join these bodies, which correspond to our divine part or spirit, we must first possess an individual human soul, and we will do this with the creation of the first 5 bodies, through the wise use that we begin to make of our valuable creative sexual energy. The creation of these bodies will allow us to have a proper representation in the different dimensions of nature. Now, there are certain requirements for a sexual practice to be a superior sexual practice that allows us to achieve spiritual birth. These are fidelity, chastity, and love. Fidelity means that we will do this practice of creation through sex, with a stable partner of the opposite sex. Since just as the male-female union is needed to beget a child, likewise, to beget the children of light, which are these internal bodies, the participation of these two forces will be needed. Chastity means not fornicating, and this is achieved through the sexual union of the man and the woman, the insertion of the male phallus, which is the penis, into the female yoni, which is the vagina, without loss of sexual creative energy, that is, without ever reaching orgasm and ejaculation, but by making that energy ascend through the spinal cord vertebra by vertebra up to the brain. And the third requirement is love. The love that is going to develop, as we advance in the work of psychological death, and we nurture in our couple relationship that spiritual longing, which will lead us to transform our sexual practices into spiritual sexual practices that will connect us with our inner divinity. The practice of sexual transmutation is very simple. With this practice, we will begin to make a wise use of our powerful sexual energy. The objective of this sexual practice will be to raise all our sexual energy through a process of breathing, imagination, and mantralization through our spine to our brain. It is recommended that before doing this practice, we perform an energetic cleaning of our room with the Belalan song, and that we make a magic circle of protection, so that negative energies do not enter the place where we are doing this practice of sacred sex. In later videos, we'll talk about how to correctly do these protection conjurations. Then, we make a simple request for assistance to our inner Father and our Divine Mother, so that they assist us in the practice. And then, we simply proceed to light the sexual fire with caresses and kisses, until the female yoni is perfectly lubricated for penetration, and the male lingam is erect. Then the couple proceeds to the connection or penetration of the lingam into the yoni. And once connected, both begin to carry out the process of transmuting their sexual energy through a simple respiratory process that has 3 stages. First, a deep and slow inhalation, trying to lengthen it. Hopefully we will reach 20 seconds in the air inhalation. Inhale, imagining that the air enters the lungs and then goes to the sexual glands. Second, retention. Hopefully reaching 20 seconds, as well in the retention of air. While you hold the air, imagine and feel how that energy, turned into a golden thread, goes to the coccyx bone and up the spine, vertebra by vertebra, up to the point between the eyebrows. And third, exhalation. And while exhaling, slowly and elongately mantralize the sound. Then repeat the complete breathing and imagination process to transmute the energy, and when reaching the point of mantralization for the second time, do it with the sound. Repeat the procedure again, and the third time exhale singing the mantra. That is a complete transmutation process, with the 3 sounds or mantras. Then restart the breathing and mantralization process, vowel by vowel, repeating the entire breathing procedure for each vowel. The pronunciation of these mantras while sexually connected will generate a specific vibration that will activate the superior capacity of sexual energy. And if at any time, the sexual potency drops, that is, the man loses some of his erection, or the woman loses some lubrication, make soft and gentle movements to recover sexual potency and continue transmuting the sexual energy. This practice can be prolonged for as long as the couple wants, or for as long as they have sexual power. As soon as the power is completely over, because all the energy has already been transmuted, the practice ends. The success of the practice is to always withdraw from it, without ever spilling the sexual energy by reaching orgasm or ejaculation. It is important to have a lot of concentration throughout the practice, not to let the mind wander in thoughts, but to live each process of the practice, with the consciousness focused on the action that we are carrying out. Also a lot of imagination, because with conscious imagination, we are going to direct the energy to the higher centers. And a lot of will, so that you never reach the overexcitation of sexual organs and expulsion of sexual energy. It is important to consider not to bathe until 2 hours after doing the practice. Another important thing to keep in mind is not to do the practice during the menstrual period, or if the woman is pregnant or lactating. It is also important not to use contraceptives since they isolate and affect the creative power of sexual energy, and we must bear in mind that this practice is a natural control of fertility, because the success of the practice is to always withdraw from it, without reaching orgasm and ejaculation. We will be talking and delving into this topic of the art of suprasexuality in different conferences. Now, the third pillar of inner wisdom is psychology. We must come to observe and understand that many people live within us, that we are never identical. Sometimes a mean person manifests in us, at any other time an irritable, or a depressed person, sometimes a splendid or benevolent person, later a gossip, or a scandalous or slanderous person. Our energy is bottled up in each one of our defects. We are human machines, simple puppets, driven by invisible strings. We lack a true individuality, each defect moves in a different direction, that is why we are never the same. When we seriously self-observe our inner world, we are surprised by so many defects. Each of our flaws is a different person. And by eliminating any of our defects, the amount of consciousness that defect had trapped is released. With the death of each of those selves or egos, we recover the wisdom and love that were locked up in it. In this way, the sparks of our consciousness are released and integrated into the free consciousness. So, we must understand that in each of the details of our anger, our laziness, our lust, envy, jealousy, greed, fears, concepts, beliefs, judgments, reactions, sadness, vices, excesses, arrogance, betrayals, etc. It is where all that awareness that we currently lack is trapped. And we must understand that only by doing a conscious work of understanding and consciously eliminating each of our negative ways of being, will we achieve the development of our consciousness. With the death of each of the psychological defects, we recover the wisdom and love that were locked up in it. In this way, the sparks released are integrated into the free consciousness, and we are increasingly conscious. The greater the number of defects removed, the greater our percentage of awakened consciousness. Let's see what is the method for the liberation of consciousness through the practice of psychological death, or elimination of the ego. First, we must observe ourselves at all times, in order to discover the different defects that manifest in us. Once we discover a defect that is moving, let's say, our emotion, be it anger, fear, anxiety, lust, etc. Or that is moving our thoughts by making us imagine, remember or plan. Or our motor functions, making us feel the desire to act or speak in a negative way. We proceed to judge that desire until we come to understand that it is actually a manifestation of our ego, not of our consciousness, since it comes to waste our energy, harm ourselves and others. And once understood, it must be eradicated from us. And this is achieved through an elimination request to the power of love of our consciousness, that is our particular Divine Mother, who has the power to transform and regenerate us. We mentally ask her, Divine Mother, remove this defect from me. With this simple procedure, we can change our way of being, eliminating detail by detail, each one of the psychological defects that have trapped 97% of our consciousness, managing to begin to free and integrate our consciousness. This process is called death in progress. In this course, we will be delving into this topic of the elimination of our ego, and we will be teaching valuable techniques to delve into psychological death and the liberation of our consciousness, such as reflective meditation and death on the cross of sex. The fourth pillar of inner wisdom is mysticism. Mysticism teaches us to love work, both the inner and the outer work. A person begins to know his inner world when he has begun to experience and to verify the reality of his own particular being. Both in the work of creation of the bodies, in the disintegration of our defects, and in the sacrifice for humanity, it is necessary to develop love of work for the work itself. And this is one of the most difficult things, because of the state we are in, where we are used to working for money or other interests, and when we have to work without these kinds of incentives, we don't feel like doing it. So, when we develop selfless sacrifice for humanity, we begin to experience love for them. We then vibrate with the wonderful force of love and experience a very important change in each of our cells. Mysticism is experienced directly in the sacrifice for humanity, when selflessly, and without distinction of race, age, color, condition, etc. We give this knowledge to everyone in its pure form, without mixing it with other things, without adding or taking anything away from it, and without charging it in any way, so that everyone, if they wish, can receive the precise techniques, and can get to know themselves. Only through practice and direct experimentation, we can perfect our ability to do, which we will call mysticism, since love only manifests itself in actions. And finally, let's see what the objectives of self-knowledge are. What are we going to achieve if we embark on a journey towards self-knowledge? The regeneration of the human being. Liberation of all our consciousness. Creation of the superior existential bodies of the being. Knowledge of all laws. Knowledge of the higher dimensions. Awakening of all our dormant faculties. To reach the level of man and then of Superman. Immortalize the soul. Resurrect ourselves. Achieve sacred individuality. And to achieve the self-realization of the being. In this course, 75 practical topics will be taught, based on these 4 pillars, all of them freely accessible and totally free of charge for all those interested. Remember, know yourself, and you will know the universe and the gods. In the next topic, we will talk about the mysteries of death. The processes that the person experiences when his physical body dies, and the different types of death that exist. And we will talk about which of them is the one that frees us. Well, thank you very much to all of you who attended this conference. See you next time.